Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I'm in Ireland. Today I have a Killowen whiskey. Da 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 da. This is a 10-year-old blended Irish whiskey, non-chilled filtered, a natural color, Pinot Noir Burgundy with 56%. I have bottle number 254 from 388 bottles. Yay. Whiskey base number 164115. Now in this nice little bag, I almost missed something. My wife loves these bags. She does little art decorations with them. There's a nice little note in this bag. I actually got two of those because I guess I'm extra special, but I only need one. It says here, and I've been waiting for this message to come for a very, very long time, because it says here at the very, very back of this, it says here, passionate about transparency. Their logo. Brendan, I love what you're doing, but kind of thought that was going to happen. Sorry. So, dear customer, Killowen would like to thank you for your support in buying this small batch product. Aww. We would like to apologize for the damage to our back labels. Damage. Now, what they had to do is the exact same thing that Louise from J.J. Corey at the Lock-In had to do. They had to blacken out some important information. And you're going to ask yourself, ooh, I'm totally wrong color now. You're going to ask yourself, what important information was that? And that was, of course, ages. The European law, and therefore also the Irish law, says you can only put the youngest whiskey on the label. So it says here, at Killowen, we have always strived for best practice in terms of consumer transparency. Unfortunately, this transparency has been deemed misleading by those in the industry who are assumed to protect the Irish whiskey category. Killowen is making it their obligation to reform the numerous inconsistencies within the current technical file by lobbying the relevant organizations. Bravo. We thank you for your continued support in this matter. Kind regards, Killowen. As I said, I knew this was going to happen. I mean, come on, yeah? It was just a matter of time before enough people learned about Killowen and then went, oh, nope. Louise, J.J. Corey can't do it. You can't do it. No one can do it. Bruch Laddie can't do it. All right. Now, to be very honest, the only person that can do it at the moment is to have 100% perfect transparency is Waterford. And if you want to know the secret is, they're using vintage whiskeys. What's a vintage? A vintage means all the whiskey comes from one single year. So if Brandon had done a whiskey in which it was distilled in Ireland, 75% 2010 grain whiskey, 5% from 2010 malt Irish whiskey, distilled in Northern Ireland, and 20% 2010 malt Irish whiskey, no one could have said a word. Because you can only have the youngest, and if all are the same age, they're all the youngest. So that's the workaround, all right? So I'm waiting for more and more independent bonders and also independent distillers like Killowen to actually figure this out and do that. Now, it does limit a lot of what you can do because you want to have older grain or you want to have older malt, and you can't mix them or you can't have the transparency you want. I know, you can't have everything. So this is 75% grain, as I just read. It's 25% malt, 5 is from Northern Ireland, Bushmills, and 20% is then from probably double distilled from Cooley. So first of all, I want you to look at the color. Look at that. I want you to look at another color. So this is another bottle here from Killowen. This was their Belfast Week bottling, festival bottling, which I bought. Now this is a single malt and rum. This is a grain that was first an ex-bourbon, and then it was married into sherry butts. And then that product was actually married together with single malt that was previously an ex-bourbon cask. And that was, again, finally finished in a Pinot Noir Burgundy cask. And you can see the difference here. They're like night and day. All right, very, very good. So that was amazing for me to see that difference. This is 55.6, so basically the same stuff. Also 10-year-old. Now, on the nose, it's a bombardment of red wine. It's a very sweet red wine. Maybe the sweetness comes more from the grain. Maybe the sweetness comes from the wine. I don't know. I think the casks were a little bit wetter than wet, but that's just my opinion. Um, the combination of single grain and single malt Irish whiskey started its life in ex-bourbon casks, as I said, before blending and aging further in sherry butts to enhance the character of the aged blend. Killowen has expertly married it with other bourbon aged single malt Irish whiskies before finishing it in a Pinot Noir casks. Passionate about transparency. Approximate blend guide. The master distiller is here, Brendan Corty. He's a great guy. He was an architect. He went down, learned a lot from the Lark distillery, and then he came back to Ireland and said, hey, I'm going to build my own distillery. So basically put up a 40-foot container. It's a shed is what he calls it, basically, is a shed. And he has this tiny little pot still in there, and he's doing a lot of different experiments and so on. It's a really, really great thing that he's trying to do. And he will lobby, and he will be at the forefront of the lobbyists trying to change that technical file. The technical file back then was set up by Irish distillers. Irish distillers owned at the time Middleton and Bushmills. And it was like Cooley, that was John Teeling at the time, sat at the table, and it was like he was the underdog. And every once in a while he could say, hello, could I say something? And the very, very, very bad thing about the whole process was John Teeling did not really understand the heritage, the culture, and the history of single pot still whiskey. He was happy to have unmalted and malted grain. Hey, it's great. It's like, that's so unique. We're going to keep that as something very Irish. He did not know, or it was not known at the time by him, that actually oats and many other different things had been used way, way back in the 19th century. But Blackwater and Peter down there is going to do his best to also lobby and to change that technical file to include the original pot still recipes that made Irish whiskey back then great. All right, on the nose, a solid red wine. I have some currants, I have some cranberries, I have some blackberries. I have a sweetness. The 56%, there's a little bit, it's like a little drill on the middle of my tongue, going deeper and deeper with the alcohol. And on the sides of my tongue, I actually have a nice berry moment. It's fairly, the edges are rounded off. It's rounded. It's a good whiskey. This is actually, if you like red wine, this is going to be like a B- type of Irish whiskey. There are not many. I know of none. Let's change that. I know of none. Not a single malt. No, sorry. I know not of a single cask strength Irish whiskey with a Pinot Noir Burgundy cask finish. I've heard and seen some that have 46%, but not a single one that is bottle proof, cask strength, or so on. So this is a very unique whiskey. As you probably all know, Irish whiskey means blended whiskey. So the word blended is basically unnecessary. But since Brendan wants to have transparency, Irish whiskey, that was also something back then when they did technical file. The term Irish whiskey meant Jameson. It meant blended whiskey. And then it was like, oh, then we have single pot still whiskey. Yay. And then we have single malt whiskey. It's like, oh yeah, Bushmills making single malt. Let them have that as well. All right, so we had Redbreast and so on, and Powers down there with the single pot still. We had Bushmills with the single malt. And, then we had the Irish whiskey, which was blended, which was everything else basically Middleton back then was doing, Irish distillers. And so up until this day, if you ever see just the word if you just see the word Irish whiskey on the label, beware, it's probably going to be over 50% grain. All right. Question of the day. What other whiskeys have you had that were actually finished in the Pinot Noir Burgundy casks, that red wine. I know Bruichladdich has done something like that. Whether people have done that, write that down. And last but not least, if you want to write down your ideas about transparency and about the laws of writing down the different ages on this. The law was originally because also like they do in some other spirits, I think it was rum. If you write down a 40-year-old whiskey, you might have like 0.1% 40. And yet you can write down it's 40% whiskey. Here we actually had the percentages. It's like 70% from 2002, blah, 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 25% from there, and 5% from there. So we had the full transparency. So no idiot could misunderstand that, not even dumb people. It's like, wait a second, this is not that old. And it's like, the percentages are all, everything's on there. But yet, nope. What was it here? Unfortunately, this transparency has been deemed misleading by those in the industry who are assumed to protect the Irish whiskey category. All right, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening to me ranting and raving. And if Brendan was here, he would rant and rave even more. I know that. All right, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, tell others. Maybe actually share this video with some people in the Irish whiskey community, because I'm very, very sure that not many of you will get one of those 388 bottles. I'm so privileged to have a German importer, Mareike, from www.irish-whiskies with EYS.de. She is actually partnered up with Killowen, and she actually always gets a good load of stuff that comes over to Germany, and I'm usually one of the first to actually buy something there on her website and then share it with people here in Germany. All the best. See you soon. Whiskey Jason here. Bye-bye.